Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Sara. I'm a postdoc at TU Wien in Vienna, in Austria. And I want to discuss my background a little bit before starting, so we frame a bit how the class is going to be. Maybe you all know that graph drawing has track 1, which is the more theoretical part of it, and track 2, which is the more applied part of it. I am completely into track 2. Everything that I'm going to say today is going to be more in the applied version of things, in the user part, in the applied part. I want to, in order to frame the class, and in order to frame this hour and a half and how in depth I'm going to discuss things, I wanted to ask, what's your background? Can you raise your hand if you had visualization classes, human-computer interaction classes, so that I understand at what level I should discuss things? Yeah, you did? Okay, cool. There's a big part then. I'm still going to go over a number of things that I think it is good practice if I don't just take for granted that people already know something, So I'm going to still go into detail, but good to know. Okay, so I was asked to do a class on information visualization perspective on network visualization. So I want to talk about how information visualization focuses on the visual sense making of network visualization, on the exploratory analysis. And these are all a bit vague, a bit complicated words, but we're going to see a bit more in depth what they mean, going more into detail. So the goal of what we're trying to do is not necessarily to find the best layout for something, but it is to find not to find the most correct layout, but to find one that is the most useful one. We have many different contexts, many different ways in which a network visualization could be needed. Maybe the one that has the least amount of crossings is not necessarily what works in that case. Sometimes computing the solution with the minimum amount of crossings takes me a certain amount of computational effort. In what case that is worth it, and in what case I can skip over something. So a little example, this is submissions to the creative contests at GD here, this year. This is one submission in particular. I'm showing this by chance, not because it has any particular relevance. Maybe some of you have participated in the creative contest that is going to, you participated. That's for your students. Okay, that's amazing. Okay, yeah. The thing that I wanted to comment about this one is you can see how much focus in developing this visualization went into making it interesting, making it fun to look at. And sure, maybe it's even a bit much, It's a lot of details. They could be distracting. They do not allow me to focus exactly on what the relationships are. But what the people that designed this wanted to do was making it interesting, making it just fun, like attracting my attention to it because it is cool to look at. This is another example also from the contest, and it takes a completely different approach, but still it makes you curious to see what it is represented in this. And these are all values that a network visualization might have, but they're very, very hard to contain, hello. They're very, very hard to measure with numbers. They're very, very hard to understand, like, how does the user feel about my visualization? Oh, I'm missing a slide here. Oh, I commented it out. Is any of you familiar, for example, with chart junk? This has nothing to do with network visualization, but has anyone seen this before? Okay, this is the same visualization. The visualization there was made for a newspaper article. And as you can see, it has this bar chart designed in the teeth of a monster. It's very, very overdone. And everything that is in that monster visualization does not help me at all understand clearly what is the data that I'm looking at. how like, if anything, it's hindering the readability of the data. It's not helping me compare those bars, that is damaging the visualization. But because it is in a newspaper article, because it wants to be sensational, because it wants to like really be memorable and catch the attention of people, then everything that has been done for that, it actually works in its favor. It doesn't want necessarily to present you the data. It wants you to be impressed by what you're seeing. The one on the right is just the same visualization, but plain. Which one are you actually going to remember between the two? Yeah, the left one. Okay, so we're going to talk about task-aware graph drawing, encoding multivariate data in networks, and evaluating a graph layout algorithm with a bit of an InfoVis perspective over everything. I'm going to introduce a particular type of network visualization, which is called biofabric, in a few minutes. And all of my examples are going to mostly be applied to that. And the exercise that we're going to do in the next hour is going to be about this slightly different type of network visualization. So let me start from task-driven graph drawing, from guiding the visualization that we want to do based on the tasks that we want to have. Before starting to talk about task-driven graph drawing, I wanted to do a little experiment with you guys, which is, you see, that's a node link visualization, and that's an adjacency matrix. Everyone can read an adjacency matrix in this room, right? Everyone is familiar with it. It's the same network, it's the same representation, exactly the same thing. We're going to focus on the node link version for a second. I'm going to take a stopwatch. I'm going to ask a question, and the first one that figures out the answer raises their hand. The question sometimes might have more than one answer, it doesn't matter. So, okay, I have the stopwatch. Can you tell me the shortest path between nodes 6 and 7, indicated by the two red arrows? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. 73316, 7516. It's fine. It took us not even five seconds. Now here, I'm going to do it again. Can you tell me the shortest path between node 3 and node 10? Yeah, okay, it has been more than 20 seconds. The point is, it's really, really, really hard. So if for my network visualization, it's very, for the visualization that I'm doing, it's very, very important to do a pathfinding task, then obviously I should not use an adjacency matrix. But different graph. This is the network of interactions of Les Miserables. It's very, very famous, represented with a force-directed layout. Doesn't matter exactly what it is, but I'm going to ask another question on this. You can see that it's a bit bigger and it's denser than the one before. Can you tell me the degree of the node indicated by the arrow? Yeah, you can see that, but it's complicated. You're not sure of the answer. It's really not a good visualization to show the connections of the nodes, to show the degrees of the nodes, right? If it's this dense, if it's disconnected with things that are a bit overlapping. But here, instead, can you tell me the degree of the node indicated by the arrow? Oh, I'm so sorry. The projector is a bit ruining the color up there of of those squares, but still the only thing that you have to do is count the squares. It is much easier than before, and you're much more sure about the answer that you're giving, right? Okay, so showing the degree of the nodes, showing the amount of connections, perhaps should be done on an adjacency matrix instead. It just when something is very dense. On simpler graphs, then maybe it's not too big of an issue. So developing a network visualization with tasks in mind means developing a representation of, means thinking about what use people are going to do of it, right? And one of the issues with this is that when designing a visualization for the general population, we have to keep in mind a very large amount of factors that go into how people read something, which is a large amount of diversity in data literacy, in education levels, in what they're doing when they're reading this visualization, what they had that morning, so many different things. Graph drawing talks a lot about, in graph drawing, a very popular topic, for example, are the metro maps. If you think about what use you do in your normal life of a metro map, you are running in the metro, you are in the subway, you are in a rush. You are stressed out about everything. You have to do pathfinding on this subway map in the span of not even a minute, super fast. Everyone has to be able to read that, so the map should be done as well, like as good as possible, should be as readable as possible, as fast as possible by people from all backgrounds. This is an example of a task where you do pathfinding, like in what other context might do pathfinding. This might show my age. It's one of my favorite video games. It's an RPG. It's a skill tree from an RPG, right? This is Final Fantasy X in particular. But what you're doing on a skill tree from an RPG is you see a skill that you want, and then you do a pathfinding task between where you are and where the skill is. And you try to figure out what is the best path to get there. And what the developers care in designing the shape of RPG skill trees is how fun it is to traverse this thing, right? How interesting it is to go through it. Related to task-driven graph drawing, I wanted to talk about my first PhD project, which was, I was initially hired to work on type 1 diabetes data. Maybe you know a few things about how diabetes works. Maybe you had a relative, maybe you just know things randomly. Diabetes can be either type 1 or type 2. Type 2 is the one that you get with old age, where it's the one that you get with old age. And type 1 is instead another form that can be that is hereditary. It is genetic, so it can come to you even when you are really young. And one of the main differences between these two types of diabetes is that type 2 changes much slower in blood glucose level. Blood glucose level is the one that is the thing that you have to keep in track when you have diabetes. And in type 1 diabetes, instead, it changes much faster. So in the span of a day, it can go up and down in very different ways, and you have to constantly keep it in track. So while doing this project, I found out that data literacy is very complicated, even with medical patients that have to keep in track their own information, their own personal information. In this study that is down there below, it turns out that 22% of the people with diabetes didn't even know which type of diabetes they have. Now imagine asking them to keep track of all of these numbers, asking them to keep in mind how everything that they eat is going to have an effect on them a few hours later. The other problem is also that a person with type 1 diabetes on average goes to the doctor once every 3 months. They don't go constantly, they go to the doctor once in a while. It can be about 3 months. They usually have this little circle, little sensor attached to their arm that records all of their data, or in alternative, you might have seen this, they have this little pick on their finger where they extract a little drop of blood, and that measures very precisely what is the blood glucose. This is a little less precise, but this, they don't think about it. It can go on constantly. So they go to the doctor once every 3 months, and they show up and they have 3 months of data, 3 months of records from the little thing on the arm or the finger pick. And the doctor has to interpret in the span of 50 minutes what is going on with the patient. Maybe they had issues, but the doctor had to figure out where did the issues come from. And obviously, we can't give to the doctor a huge amount of numbers. We need visualization to interpret what is going on with the patient. So one option would be to show the doctor lots of line charts. This is just 9 days. It's fake line charts. It's just an example, but you can see how immediately it starts scaling in a really, really bad way. You can't see if there are patterns if you're looking at 1,000 line charts at the same time. Another issue with the data that I was given is that it was really messy. It was human produced, human annotated, and this creates all sorts of issues in it. It was a series of records with blood glucose. They were associated with some meal that the patient had, but the meals were tagged by the patients manually. So it happened to me that lunch came before breakfast, or they had 3 dinners, or breakfast is or lunch is skipped but just not recorded all the time. So what I needed to do at that point was develop a visualization that was robust to all of these things and that showed an overview of everything that was there. I had some important tasks that the doctors wanted to know, and these were related to things like not just how many lunches had very high blood glucose, not just what meal had very high blood glucose, but also how did this affect the next task. So it really needed to show trends. And this informs my design requirements. Like, how am I going to design the visualization? So it needed to support these many events. It needed to provide this overview. It needed to be robust to missing events. What I ended up doing is a storyline visualization for this, which represents each line as a kind of as a character in a storyline visualization. And the groups of characters, instead of being groups of characters, are levels of blood glucose. And if you represent multiple days together, they aggregate like that. They end up clustering together like that. So what the doctor is supposed to see from this visualization is that, oh, there were a number of lunches that ended up, oh, it's not in this one in particular, maybe. Okay, this one is representing a month of data instead. What could be interesting to see from this one is, oh, there's a number of normal blood glucose breakfasts that ended up in a very high blood glucose lunch. So maybe the patient is having like a problem with breakfast that they do not even realize. Or, there's so many effects that go into this. If they do sports, then it can create a problem. But still, maybe the space that we should analyze is the one between breakfast and lunch. Just an example. Here, because I needed to measure those tasks, I ended up having to do a user experiment to try to see which visualization was more effective. And I compared it against the one at the bottom that was another style of network visualization that was kind of state of the art. It's a type of visualization that is akin to a series of line charts. That's a series of line charts, even if they are a bit squished. And this is how I reported the results. It's not necessary to go into the details of that one, but basically for every task that I had to measure the accuracy and the timing that that the users had on the using one visualization or using the other. And without going too much into details, turns out that if this dot is more towards the left, it meant that my system was better, in this case for completion time. And if it was more towards the right, it meant that the other system was better for that task in particular. In addition to that, we also tried to record how confident did you feel we're answering. These are all things that can feel really vague. But like, what does it mean if I ask somebody which one is your preference? But still, this is stuff that is useful to record. This is stuff that is interesting to keep track of, and it can prove that even this subjective feeling of how confident are you with a thing or with another is relevant. It's interesting to keep track of for the comparison of the two systems. I need to have something to try to capture even the subjectivity of this stuff. This is just an example of how it looks like with a lot more data. Those are chess games. These are the moves of the white player in a chess game. And what you can see here is that in a chess game, pretty much everyone starts by moving a pawn. A little amount of players start with a knight. And amongst the one that started with a knight, majority still move a pawn as a second move, but then a little bit of them move the queen. So there are a few openings in which you get to move the knight and then the queen, but the majority of them are just pawns. More examples about things where tasks are important. This is upset. This is a method for displaying set membership and interset relationships. So this is how you read it. This is movie genres. So if a movie belongs to the drama category, then you have it represented by this dot here, and the bar chart on top is representing the number of instances. Then you have the ones that have more than one category here. These ones have drama and comedy at the same time. So what is the cardinality of the number of movies that have both categories applied at the same time? So these are all the set intersections that you can have. The thing about this one is that it is extremely popular because it is answering exactly something that is a need in that is a need from the community, and it is made super accessible by the fact that they developed an R package, and this got 3,000 citations in Scholar. That's a ridiculous number, but you can see how important it makes it to answer a need of somebody. You might argue that this is barely any network visualization. Where is the network? But set visualization is actually network visualization, right? If two nodes are in a set, you might as well considering as there's an edge in there. These are 4 different visualizations of the same network. Often, well, this is represented as a hypergraph. Does everyone know about hypergraphs? What hypergraphs are? Yes? Okay, just hypergraphs are networks where edges can connect more than 2 nodes, right? So one edge can be a hyper edge if it is not only connecting 2, but can connect 3, 4, whatever. Different styles of network visualization, but you can see how sets fit into that, like here. Can see pretty clearly how sets are the same thing. Yep. And speaking about that style of network visualization, where we represent belonging to a set as similarly to upset, I wanted to show Pauvis. Pauvis is this system where this visualization style where you have the nodes in your network represented as rows in there, and the connections are represented as these vertical connections, these vertical lines. So nodes the edges can connect many different nodes. You can see like here, all of these dots represent multiple nodes that are connected with the same connection. These little trailing dots down here are just indications that there's more down, but it has been filtered out at the moment. And this network that is being represented is even dynamic. It is changing through time. So each one of the columns that you have is representing some year. And this is what is determining the sorting of the edges on this. So this is a really cool method of visualization, but it's not caring that much other than the temporality of the data set. It's not caring that much about how the things are sorted on it. Like, it's not properly the layout, the sorting of the edges is not properly thought about. I think we can do more with that. So I want to start talking about biofabric. Biofabric is basically what the visualization that I showed a second before is, but much more simplified. I want to focus a lot on the sorting of this, on the layout algorithm that is used to this. So that is used for this. So here we have nodes are represented on horizontal lines. Edges are represented as vertical connections, and if there is there is an edge there if there is a connection between node 7 and node 5. Is this clear for everyone? It's going to be super important later. So how to read this is particularly important. Yep. Yep.
The length on each of these vertical lines depends on how you order the.
Yep. So like one thing that we might think about is I want these lines to be shorter because they are occupying a lot of space, or they're making the visualization more confusing, right? So the sorting of the nodes might depend on we want the edges to be shorter. That's one idea that we might have. So this is biofabric, yeah. It's the same visualization. This one that is being represented here is the same visualization that we were looking at before. So we have the node link, we have the adjacency matrix, same thing, same network. I did not invent biofabric. It was published by somebody in 2012. And it's called like this because it was published in a bioinformatics journal. And then it just stuck, kept going with that name. At the time, perhaps the sortings or the idea of multiple methods to sort nodes and edges in biofabric wasn't that much explored. Right now, we're going back on it and trying to see what we can do with it. We need a layout algorithm for it, right? In order to understand how the structure and how things are going, we need the proper sorting to see what is in the network. We do not just need, I'm so sorry, I'm stressing myself out. So sorry, the point that I wanted to make is there's not a lot of work that has been done in terms of layout algorithms for biofabric. And this is super interesting to me because it means lots and lots and lots of opportunities, right? Like, what can we do with this? One of the opportunities, for example, is we did that experiment before with what is best between node link, what is best with the adjacency matrix. What is biofabric good for? What could be the strong point for biofabric? What is the case where I have a data set, I have a task, and I decide, yes, for this one, really biofabric would be the best option possible. Only I have no idea about which one this is until I find the best way possible to represent biofabric. A way that communicates to me, oh, this is really good for this task here. So not only we do not have a layout algorithm, we also do not have proper metrics to express what is the best biofabric visualization, what is a really good biofabric visualization. In the node links, we have the crossings, we have the edge length, but is edge length really bad in biofabric, or it doesn't affect readability at all? One thing that we could do is biofabric is not too far away from an adjacency matrix. So it has the same thing of having nodes sorted, the nodes displayed on one side. But actually, in the adjacency matrix, we only have one dimension to sort the nodes. So nodes are replicated both here and there. In biofabric, we need to take care of the sorting of the nodes and of the edges at the same time. So yes, in a way we can take some inspiration, but for the edges, we need to figure out something that is completely new. Yeah, we need metrics to optimize for. So I'm trying to figure out what could be good metrics to optimize for in biofabric. And I'm looking at this visualization here. It's a bit of a bigger network from what we have seen before. And there's something that stands out to my eyes that I notice immediately, right? Do you see anything in particular that you would think, oh, this is good to look at in this visualization? Maybe in the next one, I should try to improve, try to get my layout to go in that direction.
I would look at the overlap of the horizontal and the vertical.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a cool idea. Aha, I might think about that. Maybe it communicates something. To me, the thing that stands out the most is these structures there, those things there, and also the aligned nodes on top. So I called those diagonal things staircases because it looks a bit like a set of steps, and the things on top instead are runways. The nodes aligned on top are runways. And what this is connecting to, what this is displaying is highly connected nodes. That's how you would see it in a node link. So this is immediately showing you which one is the most connected nodes and what it is connected, the most connected node and what it is connected to, right? Next one is as well a highly connected node, and this is making these structures stand out to me, but the layout is not necessarily optimized for that. Layout is, this one in particular has just sorted the nodes by degree and the edges by the minimum degree by the maximum degree of their endpoints. So yeah, staircases help people see the highly connected nodes, and they might come in this triangular shape. It can be like either an upside down triangle or this other triangle, or even if it is in this butterfly shape, that could help me too. In order to define my, if I set my mind to wanting to form these staircases, then I also need to decide which one is a good staircase. So I have a few examples of how staircases can look like. Like we have the first one on the left that is really complete, really straightforward. The next one is skipping a step. So to me, this is still looking really good. I would prefer it to be like complete, but that is also good. And then we can also have them separated. Is that good? Am I satisfied with that? not that much. I would prefer everything to be close together. So the quality function that I defined for my next for the next things that I'm going to do is I do not want the staircases to be separated. It's going to be the quality of a staircase is going to be the number of steps that are in it divided by the degree of the node that is at the center of the staircase. So if a staircase has all the steps, has as many steps as the degree of the node, to me, that's a really good staircase already. And then I also had another component to avoid the skipping a step happening, but that is less important at the moment. Let's focus on, I want the staircases to be compressed and all together. I ended up developing a method for sorting the edges so that staircases could be created, so that staircases would be encouraged in the layout. That is a random visualization of a biofabric network that is with degrescending. That's the method. That's the name of the method applied to it. You can see that some more structures are forming in it. It's a bit from the one on the left, you just can't see anything of what's going on in the network, right? The one on the right, you start seeing that there is a bit more structure. The way in which degrescending works is that it's an edge sorting method. It's not a node sorting method. You can use it in association with any other node sorting method. So first, we sort the edges according to the maximum degree of their endpoints, which is similar to what we did before. And then after that, we sort them according to their length, starting from the smallest. Here, I tried to combine I tried to help myself with a visualization of different node sorting methods, which are displayed on the rows of this, and different edge sorting methods, which are displayed on the columns of this. So how does it look like when I sort the nodes by degree and then use the node indices to sort them? Doesn't look too bad. You can see from here that sorting edges randomly creates a mess, sorting nodes randomly, and then applying a method for the edge sorting instead is still kind of salvageable. But this is the column where the edges are sorted randomly, and any kind of node ordering that you apply to this always ends up being really, really broken. So the edge sorting methods somehow have a bit more of an effect on the resulting visualization. But here you can see what degrescending does. The results are okay, honestly. So it's a viable method to build these structures. Regarding the node sorting method, we could either it's fine with pretty much every one of those methods. I did not stop there. So here you see the same network as before, the random layout. What degrescending does here, degrescending in this instance shows you two complete staircases. But then I went on and was trying to figure out, okay, so which one is the perfect layout? Which one is the best layout ever that I could obtain? And I ended up using integer linear programming in order to formulate a model that would find the exact layout, the exact method to create as many staircases as possible. So here, with the best solution instead, we have 4 staircases that appear in this visualization. And what this does is that if you were looking at this one, you might have thought that this part was not relevant, not particularly relevant, not connected, like not necessarily interesting to look at. But here you see that no, the network is actually like densely connected. There's more to it than I might see at a glance from the other visualization, okay? So very, very fast. The way in which linear programming works is that the clever thing that we need to do when developing a problem is figuring out how to write the model. The model is just an objective function. In my case, the objective function says maximize the staircases and a series of constraints that kind of describe the problem. And once we have this written in a clever way, in a way that effectively describes the problem that we have, we feed it to an IOP solver. The model is just a series of unassigned variables that are tied together by constraints. The solver is going to assign values to these variables so that the objective function is either maximized or minimized, and then it returns just a variable assignment, just values assigned to the variables, and that represents the sorting of nodes and edges. This problem in particular is interesting because you need to do the nodes and the edges at the same time in the same problem, in the same in the same problem. I do not want to go too much into the detail of how the linear programming formulation worked, but what I wanted to show is that there's two combinations in which a staircase is formed, which is, well, the edges need to be adjacent, and then their endpoints, one of their endpoints need to be aligned on the same nodes, and then the other endpoints need to be in this fashion where if one is higher, then also the next is higher. So this forms the constraints that then end up going into the linear programming. And this is additional results that we had just a few examples of what it does with the comparison of degree ascending and the linear programming one. It always finds a little bit more. The problem with it though is that it takes a long time. Yep. Not necessarily it takes a long time on everything, but it's not as scalable as another method would be, as the degree ascending method would be. So in order to test that, what I did was I took thousands of graphs. I took RomLib, which is this very, very famous and common data set to do these sort of things. So RomLib is lots of different networks. It's like 11,000 networks. They go from 10 to 110 nodes. So with increasing number of nodes, I test every single time how long does it take? How long does it take to run my code? Like a benchmark, kind of. And it's not necessarily the number of nodes that is going to determine how long it takes to solve the problems. It could be something else that influences the how difficult it is to solve something. So here you can see that number of nodes does indeed make the time grow. Number of edges also does, but it's not necessarily like what drives the difficulty in solving the difficulty in solving the problem. What really does is the maximum degree. So the node that is more connected, if it is of degree 7, if it is of degree 8, that is generating lots of different variables in the problem, and that is creating more and more difficulty for the thing to be solved. This is instead the quality ratio compared to degree ascending, to the heuristic that I showed before. So here you have how many times the linear programming formulation produced a result that was better in quality than the other one. So the line is always above 1, which means that it is always better. Whenever dots are on the 1, it means that the heuristic solution, degree ascending, still found something that had the same quality value as the exact solution, as the linear programming solution. But this is kind of it's not guaranteed that that's the best one. It can happen. There's a few tricks also to improve the performances of solving the layout for biofabric, which is, for instance, so a staircase needs to have at least 3 components in it. Less than 3, then it doesn't look like a staircase. So there are some edges that we can exclude completely from the computation because none of their endpoints have a degree at least 3. Those are never going to form a staircase. We do not care about them. In this case, instead, creating that staircase in yellow is always possible without ruining it, without creating issues to any other staircase. So we can just decide that that staircase exists without needing to compute anything in particular about it. And in this case, in particular, there could be 3 staircases that could be formed, but they can't be formed because one edge is contended between them. So I can write in my linear programming formulation that if 2 of these staircases exist, then the last one cannot exist. And that saves me some time. So because it takes a long time, the solving a linear programming problem, luckily modern solvers have the option to get the partial solution even if the computation does not finish. So I started with a threshold, which might be 1,000 seconds, and then I can just ask it, okay, if you didn't find the solution within 1,000 seconds, just return to me the best thing ever, or the best thing that you found up to this point. And you see here in this case, it returned a solution that still has better quality than the degree ascending one. Here, I let it go for longer. It improved. Still, what I want to say, what this slide wanted to say is you can still use it on larger graphs, even if it doesn't get to completion necessarily. It's just going to be the best solution up to that point, not the best solution possible. Reasons for which I'm super interested in biofabric are the amount of opportunities that might open up from this amount of things that there could be new things that we could implement, new things that we could find out, new options for which this would be really cool. Like I talked about staircases, and that was related to one motif, one pattern, this very highly connected node that we can have in a network, but that's not the only thing. We might have many different motifs and different patterns that we want to showcase in a biofabric visualization. And one of the interesting problems to me is also how do they look like? How do I want to make them look like? Like a path would look like that, right? If it's a closed path, we could add a line from the top line to the bottom line. A click, how do I design a click? I could try to source the nodes and then just belonging to a click so that they form this structure here. And then it's a series of triangles. It's a series of different other shapes. Or I might decide to have the click all compacted and just draw an entire square on top of this. You know, just what I want to communicate. It's a click, everything is connected. A connector too might look in different ways. Those are just a few design exercises that I tried making, but it could look like anything. How do we make the layout create those things? What if we took what if we also took into account graphs where there can be more than one edge between 2 nodes? Can we have different shapes? Can the motifs that are interesting change? Also define new and better readability metrics. I decided arbitrarily that I liked to see staircases. Maybe we did a user study on it, but that doesn't mean that is the only the only quality metric that can determine how good a biofabric visualization is. Everything is yet to be defined. This is very fascinating to me. Okay, where are we with the time? 9:52. We started at 9. I talked for 15 minutes already. Wow. Oh. Okay, so encoding multivariate data in networks. Just slow down for a second.
Maybe we can open for questions if someone has any questions
Oh, sure.
regarding the content so far. Yes, I do have, if no one. So, so as you mentioned, right, you were like somehow optimizing for staircases. What about like if the network doesn't have, because that's depending on the data set that you're using as well, right? What happens if that's not a strong characteristic in the data set that you're using? What should we see, or have you tried to test with this type of data sets?
What do you mean by this type of data sets? Because you have a staircase if you have a node of degree 3 in your network, which is very, very easy.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess if the staircase, if I understood correctly, is like when you have every node connecting to a single node, right? Which creates a stair.
Then you
Uh,
can have multiple nodes that are connected to many nodes, right?
yeah.
So that's other staircases. The interesting problem with the layout is if there is one super highly connected node, then it can create the biggest staircase possible. But I am ruining all the other staircases that could be visualized.
Because the staircase kind of reminds me like a eagle network where you have everyone pointing to a central node, and then you will have a huge staircase, right? But I guess in your case, you are more looking into different smaller ones, right? Something like that.
For ego networks too, I'm trying to figure out what we can do with it, because you could have like the center of the ego, and it could have like the top part. I do not have a picture here right now, but could have the top part of the biofabric dedicated to the first layer of the ego network, and then we want to go to the second jump, and we can have a whole another part dedicated to the second jump, third jump, and so on.
And what about optimizing for different? Because you show, can you go back one slide?
Yeah.
So you mentioned different patterns, right?
Yes.
You can have paths, clicks. So what about one that try to optimize for everyone? Like for staircases path, can you have one ordering that try to get the best of all the types?
Open research question to the future generations trying to tackle this problem. Yeah, it would be great, but I don't know how to do it right now. It's I even that layout, the layout methods that I discussed before are just caring about staircases. What if the best thing that we care about is to show the connectors or the paths? I have not yet even figured out something that optimizes for showing paths between different clusters in the network. This is all stuff to do. This is why it's so cool to me. There's so many things to do. Yep.
Like some of the example graphs you had also had horizontal connections, right? Between, is that accounted for in any of these? Yeah, it's like giant. The first one where you showed us the staircases and
This
right, you've got these like horizontal edges going through as well. Is
Mhm.
this accounted for in any of your? Is this a different? Does this require different methods to?
This just means you mean these lines here, right?
Yeah, what are those for?
This just means that is the same node.
Okay.
You could also consider How's it called when you do a network visualization where the same node can exist in more than one place?
Multi-layer.
Oh?
Multi-layer.
No, it's not multivariate. It's like split. No, it's not multi-layer. It's like split nodes. The same node exists. I'm blanking on this. Vertex splitting. You have the same node existing in multiple places in the network so that you can avoid some edge crossings because no duplication. Yeah. You could see it as that. It's just the same node existing in two different places.
I think you can see it's like the line is a node.
Yeah, the line is a node. Yeah. Anyway, you want to see that. Yeah, do I keep going? Okay, regarding encoding multivariate data in networks. So, multivariate means that things can contain additional information that can be of so many different types. It can be dates, it can be numerical values, it can be strings, it can be integers, it can be any data type, and it can be associated to both the nodes or the edges. Imagine that your nodes have categories, your nodes have dates associated to them. It's just additional data that is not just relationships. It's not just this is connected to that. It is this edge. Even this edge has a direction, could be considered additional information. And we want to display this stuff. Already, the storyline visualizations that are pretty common in graph drawing are multivariate data, right? So everyone is familiar with storyline visualizations? Kind of. Anyways, these are, every line is a character in this, right? And already the fact that every line is a character is additional information. The characters might have factions that they belong to, might have different colors. The events in these have a temporal component. They need to encode that by going on the x-axis. And the groupings, characters that appear in the same scene are represented as grouped together. That's also additional information that we have and that we need to display. This can affect what kind of tasks we want to do in a network. Like once we have multivariate data, we can start caring about questions like which node or edge has a given attribute value. If we have weights on paths, for example, we might start thinking about which path between two nodes has a given cost, has less than a given cost, all sorts of stuff. And I want to show you a few examples where interesting multivariate data and its representation can be seen. This is a genomics network. I think the layout of this is manually done, but let's focus on what multivariate attributes we have. You can see here that we have labels. That's already a thing that we have to keep in mind into the layout of this network. And we have different categories that the nodes belong to, right? This, you might consider this ugly, not well done, or excellent. That's not important. Focus on the different categories, on the way in which it is representing multivariate data. So the colors are encoding something. The angles of the boxes too. We have two different types of boxes. This is all additional information. Here, this additional information can be as complicated as it comes. So these nodes even have like time series, line charts in them, right? And here, this is instead an interesting way to represent information on edges, which is through these waves, right? Like the waviness, the amplitude of this stuff, and the color as well is representing something. Might be effective, might be not effective. I'm showing it to you because it's interesting. It's not a suggestion necessarily. Here, this is another interesting idea on representing values on edges. They have many different values. How can they encode them? They did kind of a bar chart, kind of a series of bar charts on this. Many of these things are, Carolina Nober had super interesting survey on encoding multivariate data onto different types of network visualization. And there we see that biofabric is mentioned. So what do we do to encode multivariate data on this? How do we add information to this? So there was a paper a while ago that discussed how can we encode information on different types of by having different marks on edges. These are all the different methods that they discussed. You can do it with color, you can do it with the thickness, you can do it with a gradient. With dashes, you would vary the spacing between dashes and the length of the dashes. You can have multiple attributes, multiple connections, multiple edges. The curvature of the connections is also an option. Waviness, dots, similar to dashes, and so on. So I tried doing this to biofabric. I tried encoding information on the nodes. This is just a single attribute that is encoded in the thickness. This is multiple attributes that are encoded with different dashes. Thickness, but with multiple attributes, and curvature of the thing. None of this looks good to me. This is all a bit terrible, right? What is interesting to me is that you have plenty of space on the sides of biofabric. So you can add bar charts to the side and add all of your attributes to the sides of it. Now I'm showing just bar charts there, but ideally it could be strings, it could be additional visualizations, and not only for the nodes, but also for the edges at the bottom. And this even leaves a space here to include some other summary visualization, perhaps about the statistics of attributes of edge and nodes. And here, as an exercise, as a random fun thing, I used all of the different possible encodings on a single biofabric visualization. This is character co-occurrences in different seasons of Game of Thrones. So here in the different columns, you have all of the different ways to encode data on edges. And in the last one, you have all of the different ways to encode data on nodes. And on the sides, you have the bar charts too. This is terrible. It was just a fun thing to do for me to see how it would look like. Still, the thing that I want to discuss the most about multivariate attributes, which could be a good way to show biofabric's potential, is that it is so hard to display a series of attributes on edges. If you think about a node link network visualization, having a series of bar charts on the edges of a node link style visualization is really awkward. On biofabric, I have plenty of space down there. On a matrix instead, what would happen is that the only space that I have to represent the additional information is inside these tiny squares. Inside, like edges are just represented as those little squares. So if I had more and more growing information, then it would just keep being compressed and not have space to grow. So we run a user experiment to test how well people were able to read what would be the preference with a growing amount of attributes to read a growing, what would be the preferences in reading a growing amount of attributes. Turns out that because of familiarity, people are a bit better at reading adjacency matrices instead of biofabric style visualizations. But the more attributes you have, the more the preference goes towards biofabric. Evaluations. Okay. 10:07. I just want to drink a sip of water. Okay, so I made a layout method before. What do I do next? I want to present how good it is to other people. I want to present how it improves over something else. How do I do this? I showed before that what I was doing was showing you the visual results, okay? What I was trying to do was show you a picture and seeing, look how much better this is compared to the random layout. And you immediately, with your site, have a perception of, oh, in this case in particular, it looks good. And then the other thing that I showed you was this aggregate. I'm showing you, oh, look, in all cases, this method is better than this other one, but I'm not allowing you to focus on the individual details of each one. Or in general, the median, the mean, the average of my runs with this amount of nodes takes this. But here we are completely abstracting from the individual graphs. You do not see the results. I'm just communicating to you, oh, this is the number of, this is a final aggregate number. So there's these many different choices that you need to do when deciding how to present the results, how to evaluate what a layout algorithm is doing, right? And they're all connected between one and the other. Like, for example, if I have as a graph feature that I'm addressing with my layout algorithm, clusters. I have clusters handled by my layout algorithm. Then the metrics that I need to report, if I want to show how brilliant my thing is, are metrics that need to be associated with clusters. Then the data set that I'm going to choose will have to be a data set that is associated with clusters. The problem that I had was that there is no default, no standard method to present an evaluation. It's not like with graphics cards, you have benchmarks, you have anything like that to present the results. So I was really confused, and I found myself going over and over to different authors' papers and seeing what interesting things they had done. So what I ended up doing is I read a whole lot of papers and I compiled a survey so that I could address how other people had done their evaluations and then give myself or other people recommendations on how to run a graph layout algorithm evaluation. What I did was I read the last 7 years of graph drawing proceedings, and then I read the papers that were cited in them through this process that is called snowballing. When you run a survey, you just check the citations and check, find more citations through reading citations. Yeah. I also included the search results from IEEE and Eurographics, and many papers do comparisons between different algorithms. So you're presenting an algorithm and you're comparing it against what was there before and saying, oh, this is better than what was there before. If this happened, I took also the compared algorithm. I had some also inclusion or exclusion criteria, like I did not want to care about 3D layout algorithms. Those are weird and complicated. And then the papers needed to change the position of either nodes or edges. That's what I considered, okay, this is a layout algorithm. So I ended up finding 206 papers, and I read all of them to explore what they did to present their results. So first of all, let's start talking about the evaluation type that they use. What do I want to communicate to my reader about the algorithm that I'm presenting? How do I present these results? And we have discussed the visual part before. We have discussed how important it is to see immediately the results. If you're looking for something that handles a particular characteristics to a picture, you can see it at a glance, right? But we also have this style of reporting the information, which is individually about every single one of the graphs. You can report the values about that particular instance. So you see there, one row is a network, and it has its own information reported in the row. And last one, the one that encompasses the most information, the one that compresses the most information in just a visualization, is this aggregated style, where you do not see anything about the individual runs. What you see is just the median, the average. And this allows us very, very well to compare things en masse, to compare a large amount of things, and also to show how something scales, how something changes when you change a value. In this case, and very often, it is like, how does the performance of my algorithm change with an increasing number of nodes? It would be very hard for me to show many, many pictures to prove, oh yeah, if you change the number of nodes, then it is consistently scaling in a different way. Examples of papers using these methods in different ways. This is the Fruchterman-Reingold paper that is extremely cited about the force-directed layout. This is a 40-page paper, and it has lots of pictures. It has lots of pictures, and it shows you immediately where it is going, what it is going to do to data and information. In contrast, it has very little actually numerical information, actual tests. And here, the complete opposite, a new approach to exact crossing minimization. There are no pictures, no visual results, not at all. We do not care. The only thing that we care about is the values in the end, the aggregate results, like this is consistently better than this other thing. And I do not care to show you the picture of how it looks like. You know that less crossings are going to look better than more crossings. Graph features, that's another thing that I classified. What do people handle in graph layout algorithms, right? In these 206 papers that I had. Not super interesting. You can see that most people just handle generic graphs. Many people, it's very common to do n layers. And one small rant that I have is that people describe the graphs that they handle as large. What does large mean? You see here, 22 of the papers claimed that they handled large graphs. What does large mean in this context? What was large in the 90s and what is large now? So in order to classify them from time to time, I had to just trust the wording of the person. Trust that if they claimed that they handle large graphs, I just recorded, okay, they do large. Same thing for high degree. What does it mean to be high degree? You have to specify numbers in the paper, like large, how many nodes, how many edges? What do you mean by that? Regarding datasets used, so there's a collection of datasets that are super common, in part because they are also linked on the GD website, on the conference websites under datasets. In part because they are super useful to do these things like with growing node number, how does the performance scale? RoamLib is one of these, for example. It is 11,000 graphs. They go from 10 to 110. They are very simple. They do not have anything in particular associated to them, but they allow you to very, very easily push many runs on them and then produce a graph where, yeah, nodes change from 10 to 110. How much time does my thing take? By assorted, I collected networks that had similar features like transportation networks and maps. I do not care exactly what is the map about. So is it the same data set, is different? I do not particularly care. What I care about is all of the networks used in this thing have geographical component, have a geographical component, have geographical coordinates. So it means that there's a number of algorithms that really want to address geographical coordinates. But one of the most interesting parts to me here is these custom ones. So here I have a co-occurrence matrix of what graph features are used in combination with what dataset. This means that if you were looking to develop a layout algorithm that handles n layers, that handles layer graphs with n layers, which dataset did you go look for? So in the case of, let me find one, dynamic networks, for example, dynamic discrete, here you see that a bunch of people, a number of people, 6 there, have used collaboration networks. Collaboration networks are usually like networks of people that worked on the same paper, and they have a dynamic component because the papers have years. One part that this visualization is communicating to me is the more people had to use custom datasets, the more a dataset with those features was missing. So custom means that you have generated it yourself. You have generated it yourself because it was not there. You could not find a dataset that was easy to use for the graph feature that you were trying to address with your layout algorithm. It was a bit more complicated. So you ended up either generating the entire thing, or like editing the feature into an existing dataset, like doing a rank assignment to a dataset that does not have ranks in that does not have creating layers, forcing layers into something that does not inherently have layers. Here, for example, I have some numbers about what edits have been done. Generated means a dataset has been completely generated. Truncated means that you only took a section of the dataset. That is also editing a dataset, right? Like, why did you not test your entire layout algorithm on the entirety of RoamLib? It could be because on the bigger ones you could not finish computing, but still you should specify this, right? Cherry picking is also a problem. If you show the results of your layout algorithm on the best graph out of a big pool, then that's not representative of the quality of the results, right? So just picking 2 or 3 graphs that look excellent with the result of your layout algorithm is a bit like false advertisement if you only show that. So the wording close to custom here, custom, replicable, reproducible, and non-replicable, that is different layers of different layers of how easy it would be to replicate your experiment. Custom replicable means that you either distributed the dataset or like gave me enough information, maybe gave me the code to regenerate the entirety of the dataset. Reproducible means that I cannot replicate it exactly, but I can get pretty close to it because you gave me enough information in the body of the paper. Say you explained, okay, I used this method to generate the dataset, and it had between 10 and 20 nodes every graph, stuff like that. I can come close, but I do not have access to the full thing. Non-replicable means that you did not give me any access to your dataset. You did not give me any way to redo the dataset. If I cannot replicate your experiment, then I do not trust you anymore. Then I can have no trust that what you're saying is correct. And like, not just me, but the entirety of the community. If an experiment is not replicable, it loses lots of value. like we should strive to produce research that is that can stay, that can be conserved for the future, and that is provable. Making something that is not replicable, and in this case in particular, forgetting about the data set, makes your paper lose lots of value. What kind of information about the dataset should be reported in the body of the paper? Again, with this one, but I want to focus on what is on the right, like the last two columns. So very, very often we're reporting the results of, we're reporting about a layout algorithm. What is going to affect the results is not necessarily the number of nodes. We have seen for biofabric before that the degree of the nodes was the maximum degree of a node was the most important thing, but usually people overlook completely what is not number of nodes, sometimes number of edges. We're reporting the information about what data set they use. Here I found this brilliant. They have a little chart on the side there that shows the distribution of degrees of nodes, for example. I suspect it is because it was relevant for them. Indeed, these distributions of degrees are very, very like change a lot in the datasets that they picked. But this is a really good way to present, oh, look, if a data set is completely dense or completely sparse, or it has a section that is completely dense and completely sparse, look at how the results change. What results, what metrics are reported for graphs with particular features? What results we should report? This is a huge can of worms. I tried classifying what I wanted to have a bit of a guide, like, okay, what is important for me to report? I ended up finding out that there are so many different metrics. It's a ridiculous amount. And many of these either have a definition and then different wording to call them. I mean, multiple things can be, like, say that there is a word to say, sorry, got stuck. Say that there is multiple words to indicate less crossings. Okay, it's complicated. Many of these are proposed, and then maybe no user studies have ever been done with them. It's a really complicated word here. Here you have the total number of how many times these metrics have been used in total, not split by evaluation types. You see that the most reported one is running time, 96 times, but then you have number of crossings as second value. And in here, you can see observations I called instances where people just comment on the results of their layout algorithms, okay? You show a really nice case study, you show a picture, and then you do not focus on numerical values, you show, you are commenting the insights. That is also valid to me. That is also a thing that you should do. So these 41 instances is when people did only that, did not present any other thing. And you can see here in the case study, in the people that run case studies, it was a bit more interesting to comment on them compared to the people that did like aggregated or quantitative individual reporting. They do not comment much on them. You can see that instead the aggregated and the individual go a lot more into hard numbers, like what was the number of crossings, what was the total edge length. And information availability is the last part that I wanted to discuss that is super, super, super important. So I had a bit of a rant before about you should report enough information for your dataset to be replicable or distribute the dataset. I also collected how many of the papers that were in the survey had, how did they treat their supplemental material, what did they do with the code. surprising amount did not distribute the code. So you present a layout algorithm and then you do not give me either pseudocode or code to replicate the thing that you're doing. An amount of them had dead links, unfortunately, for their supplemental material. So one of the issues with links in papers with storage of supplemental material is that the links die, especially if people store the thing on their university webpage and then they change university. And the technician at their previous university just deletes the content of their page because what is that? They do not care. This happened with a really, really popular data set about storylines, about movie plots. It was very popular, used by like 10 different papers after its publication. It was hosted on somebody's personal university page. All of the papers, instead of re-hosting the data set, they linked to the website where it was hosted, which feels very, very like fair to the owner of the data set. But then the person just left the university or changed university and the source got deleted. And this data set was very, very hard to find. So personal page, not a good idea. Personal page on the university, not a good idea. Personal website, also not a good idea. We would like to build something that stays for the next N years, you know? And at the speed on which stuff on your personal page gets deprecated, it's a bit concerning. Repositories like Archive and OSF are great. OSF is a repository for supplemental material where you can also put your preprints. They claim to have funding to support storing information about research, having this storage for the next 50 years. So they seem trustful, and stuff like YouTube. When here I have YouTube, it means that the supplemental material was in form of a video. YouTube and GitHub are proprietary companies. They're not going to guarantee us that what we give to them is going to stay. It's going to stay there or not be used for weird things. So let's say that my recommendation would be to put things on OSF or Archive or stuff like that. Okay, so final recommendations. Oh, it's 10:30. I'm almost precise in timing. Reporting information about the dataset used is fundamental, and it's even better to include the dataset as supplementary material. Absolutely avoid cherry-picking bias where you just pick the best result and just show that. Report appropriate metrics according to graph features and type of evaluation. And regarding what type of evaluation to use in particular, obviously it depends on the case, but aggregated and individual accompanied by a case study are a great way to present the results. Sometimes it can happen that you want to evaluate metrics that are hard to encapsulate in just a number, how fun a layout is. In that case, a user study is great. I built a website to store the results of the survey where you can filter the papers. You can filter the papers by different criteria. And then I also built, I'm so sorry. Okay. And then I also built another website where I am classifying different data sets, where I'm storing the data sets and classifying, like, I'm trying to figure out what is in the last landscape of different data sets that have been used for layout algorithms, so that the next person that comes can be like, oh, I need a data set that has this number of graphs with this feature, can go on the website and find something that hopefully works for them. And it also contains all of the examples of where these data sets have been used in previous literature, with pictures, descriptions that have been found in literature, so that you can have examples of what are the contents and what are they good for.